Can everybody see my screen? Okay, fine, perfect. Okay, everybody, we start our workshop today with the title Reservoir Seismic versus or against Geological or Reservoir Geological Characterizations. It will be presented by me. I'm geologist Tajuddin Ben Isa. So I hope that we, through this workshop, we understand the main the main point in reservoir seismic and geological characterization, which is the importance of integrated approach for better field development. We will see together where these two subjects meet or agree and how they can be integrated together to provide more robust results and can contribute to increase the value of the oil and gas assets. Okay, so start with our first slide. We will go before we go into technical details of geological and seismic characterization, it's important first to understand uh, why we held a workshop regarding these two subjects. Reservoir development decisions today are made in increasingly complex and uncertain environments. So, if some of you are working for oil companies, they are involved in reservoir characterization and modeling projects. You always note that there are problems associated with the uncertainty of the data, which represent the main challenge and the main challenge to achieve successful projects. Okay, so relying on only one type of data or one of the disciplines is no longer sufficient as in the past. So both the geophysicists and geologists used to work on separate subjects. They provide separate reports, but this is no longer effective. They both started working on integrating their data to reach better reservoir characterization results. This workshop, I designed this workshop to show how integrating geology and seismic interpretation leads to better understanding the better understanding, the better we understand the reservoir, the lower risk there will be, and then the positive impact on the value of the asset and also in the field development. So, for importance, why integration matter? Okay, reservoir decision, development decisions based on only geology or only on seismic. Okay, often lead to if we did that, as we said earlier, often lead to incomplete understanding. So the integration combine both data, high resolution well data, including the wide area seismic coverage, the wide area that the seismic covers. Can produce more reliable reservoir models and reducing development risks. For industry challenge, the oil and gas industry always faces increasing complexity in reservoirs, especially carbonate and fracture. Okay, this will have impact on the economy, on the economics. Okay, and also produce high uncertainty because you all know that there's always uncertainty associated with data which have impact on the project development. So So for that, fragmented workflows between geology and seismic and poor communication between both disciplines often result in what we call suboptimal field development and hence costly mistakes. So, another point is integrated interpretation. So, when geological and seismic interpretations are aligned, okay, reservoir architecture, geometry, fluid distribution, and also connectivity are better understood. The more integrating the data, the better image for our subsurface reservoirs. And based on that, this leads to more accurate reserve estimation, improved well placement, and also we optimize the recovery strategies. There's also okay. There's the expected value from this workshop is that you can learn how important is evaluating the data, how important managing the uncertainty and their impact. We'll go through the next slides about the uncertainty and the workflow of integrating or applying the integration. There's no uh, the integration is not a standard, but sometimes you create a certain you need to in a cooperation. If you are a geologist in a cooperation with geophysicists, you need to get into workflows or integrate workflows from seismic and geology to produce more robust results and achieve more successful development of projects. Okay, so for okay, we understand the purpose of the workshop. Now I want to produce the learning objectives. Okay, that you will get from this workshop. The first one, you will have. Uh, you will understand the differences between both. So the professionals and also junior geologists or even geophysicists can develop clear understanding clear understanding of what each discipline, geophysics and geology, can and cannot deliver. Okay, this by understanding the differences between both and the limitations of each one, that can prevent the what we call too much depending or over reliance, okay, on single data source, and then help appreciate or appreciate how geologic and seismic interpretations complete each other's in reservoir studies. Then we also evaluating data types. Okay, so there are a lot of data. Some of them associated with seismic, others associated with geology. There's also other discipline data like drilling and reservoir engineers. Okay, by evaluating our data, because the quantity and the quality of the data is different from field to another. Okay, so when the oil companies they tend to make or develop data acquisition plan, they they tend not to spend too much money actually because data acquisition is very costly nowadays. So you need, as a geologist or geophysicist, you evaluate your types of data. So from this, you will learn how to recognize the data limitations, resolution issues, and uncertainty sources. Okay, and this can help you to improve your ability to assess the risk, how to anticipate our questions, how to assume questions, produce more reliable technical interpretations when you work on your project. Okay, next one is knowing when to rely. Okay, so from here, you can determine if you are a geologist or geophysicist when to rely on the geology data and when to rely on seismic or when to rely on both. If you could get this skill, okay, actually the selection depends on the issue that you have, okay, or the stage of the project that you are working on. So like this, if you gain the skill, okay, you can have insight, okay, you can decide which dataset, okay, to be used at various project stages. This helps you understand, okay, how technical work influences uh, drilling plans, reserve estimations, and development strategies. The applying integrated workflow, you will learn how to combine well data. Okay, if you understand the as I said earlier, because at every stage of the field development projects, you need to design a certain workflow from integrating the data between geology and geophysics. Okay, so once you could obtain this skill, okay, then you will learn how to choose the data, how to combine between with data and seismic data. Okay. Also, uh, uh, this skill prepares you to contribute effectively to multidisciplinary projects, and this is the fun part actually. So you are a geologist, you can find yourself working with a geophysicist on geophysical data, vice versa, the geophysicist with with the geologist, and this is the most interesting point. This is the fun part of the integration. And final one, improving communication. Every project, one of the key success for project achievement is not only the technical experience, it's not only the data type, it's not the capital or the capex or opex or whatever. It's also the team or the communication between the multidisciplinary departments of the team who are working in the project. So, especially as if you are a junior, you will develop the ability to communicate technical ideas, okay, clearly across disciplines. This, by the way, this build confidence, also improve teamwork concept, okay, for you, and enhance the credibility with integrated asset teams. Recently, we in the oil company, the meeting always hold multidisciplinary department personnel. So you find a drilling engineer, you find geophysicist, you find petrophysicist, you find geologist, you find uh, sedimentologist. So there is a multidisciplinary, and this is very good because you will, uh, if you could, if you could understand and get the skill or the communication skill between the different teams, uh, uh, you will build a confidence, as we said, you will build a confidence in your abilities and your skills, and also make make your network skills also very strong. Okay, so okay, the, uh, the standard reservoir characterization flow. Uh, you can see it in this image. Okay, so it starts from work correlation, which is represented by data. We plot the data, and we whatever the software that we use, we make correlations, we make analysis, and so on. Then we go to the next steps from mapping to structure modeling, which is associated with in which the geophysics part or the seismic part play very important role to geology study to until we make the decision to put the well where we want to produce hydrocarbon or hydrocarbon. So through all these stages, okay, there is an integration between geology and geophysics, between the geologist and the geophysicist in each stage of this or in each stage of this workflow for reservoir characterization. So, but before we go into the role of reservoir characterization in field developments, let's go through quickly the field cycle. Okay, we need to go quickly through the main phases of any oil and gas development in the world. So you know that in the field cycle, it comprises from five stages or five phases. Okay, so the first one is the discovery. Okay, which is tend to answer one question: where is the potential? Where is the hydrocarbon? Okay, this is the question, the $1 million question. Okay, then we come to the appraisal. From the appraisal, when company collects insightful data from the stage of the discovery and exploration, okay, they collect insightful data about reservoir geology and potential from appraisal wells. Okay, such important information like information about reservoir structure, reservoir connectivity, reservoir properties, and reservoir property. Then, after a period of time, the company tend to make a development plans. So they start drilling wells to develop and produce hydrocarbon on certain production plateau for a period of time, uh, based on the simulation and forecast results. Also, or in addition to different studies need to be carried out during this period. Okay, the company should have at the end of this stage, the company usually produce their first FDP. After that, we get into the production stage or phase at which the company is looking to keep production at the maximum or the best plateau and avoid declining before actual time, okay, according to their forecast. And after that, the last phase, which is the abandonment, where the company make allocate or plan to abandon the field. So reservoir characterization, okay, seismic or geologic or both are carried out starting from this phase down to the starting from discovery and exploration phase down to production phase. Okay, so let's now come to the role of reservoir characterization in field development. The first one is well placement. Okay, so how it impacts, how reservoir characterization impact well placement and decision of selecting the location where we want to drill the well. It defines the geometry. Actually, when we do a reservoir characterization study, okay, we define the geometry, okay, quality and connectivity of reservoir units. So by integrating the geological phases models with seismic, structural, and stratigraphic interpretations, uh, not only the geoscientists, also the engineers can identify optimal drilling targets. It's reduce the risk of drilling dry holes and avoid low quality zones, which also increase the probability of intersecting productive intervals. So this is for the well placement. What about reservoir, or reserve estimation? Sorry, it should be reserve. The reservoir characterization also impact the reserve estimation because the accurate reservoir characterization improve our understanding of reservoir extent, thickness, properties like porosity and water saturation, and also continuity. They integrated between geology and seismic models. They reduce the uncertainty in volumetric calculations and recovery factor also. And this leads to more reliable reserve classification and calculation. Then we come to the also the role of seismic characterization and production optimization. So how the reservoir characterization work in this part. Uh, the integrated reservoir model, when we create, we build Integrated reservoir models help identify the flow barriers. Okay, also identify the high probability pathways and bypass hydrocarbons as well. So, what does this exactly enable? Enable optimized well spacing, completion design. Okay, okay, and also for and finally for investment decision. Actually, it's a complete cycle starting from well placement to investment decision. So the better the integrated, okay, the integrated reservoir characterization between seismic and geology, the best well, the locations, okay, of the wells will be the best locations will be determined, okay, which will produce more reserves, okay, maximize or optimize production, and also uh, the, contribute to predicting reservoir performance. High quality reservoir characterization, by the way, also reduce subsurface uncertainty, which allow the management to evaluate project risks and return more uh, um, return more increase more revenues. Okay, so now let's come to to the challenge between geology and seismic. Okay, so in this table, I want to highlight uh, why neither geology nor seismic alone is sufficient. Okay, so you can see that from each aspect. Okay, from the aspect that's written in the column. Okay, so if we look to aspect number one, we have the primary data source. So for geological characterization, okay, alone we have the well, we have the core, we have the logs, we have the cutting, and also we have the pressure tests and gas tests and all these data. While in seismic, we have the surveys 2D, 3D, or even 4D. For data coverage, this is a very important point. Geological data always limited to the well location, okay, or to the location of the outcrop if we are collecting our data from outcrops, okay. But for seismic, it's continuous aerial coverage. It means that it has extension in aerial scale, aerial scale. Okay, we're done with data coverage. Then we come to the vertical resolution. Okay, for geology, the resolution is very high. Why? Because we are taking our data or making the measurements at the scale from centimeter to feet to meter, like the space between core plugs, like the scale of the well logging. Okay, so it's very high and it's very fine. While in seismic, okay, it's moderate. Okay, we can describe it moderate or even large. Okay, extends from 10 to 30 meters, and that depends on frequency. Sometimes it's more. Okay, depends on the frequency, and this is one of the contradictions, one of the main contradictions between geology and seismic data, which contribute to the uncertainty of the model of the model results that we create in the field development projects. This is one of the main points. We will come to it later. Then we come to the lateral resolution. This is the vertical resolution. Now we come to the lateral resolution. We said that it's limited between the wells. So what does it mean limited between the wells? This means that we have the data or geological data at well location. So we drill the well at some area and we collected the data, and that's it. So we have geological data represent the reservoir. Okay, represent the reservoir at that well, but away from the well, we don't know what's happening there. Also, okay, for seismic, there's a good lateral continuity which enables good mapping for the reservoir, depends on the boundary of the area. Scale of observations, local to near well scale. while for seismic it's field, it's more, it's higher scale compared to the geology. Okay, then we come to the property estimation, direct measurement and calibration. We have a wind logs, we have the gamma ray, we have the neutron, we have the density. We can measure and calculate or compute our reservoir properties, while in seismic, the prediction of the property is indirect, okay, through inversions and through inversion process, which will result in seismic attributes, which is considered as relative data that can be used to guide the distribution of reservoir properties and phases, and also other structural features like fractures. For structural definition, to define the structural definition, we cannot know, for example, in geology, we don't know that there is a fault here unless we check the difference between the well tops. Okay, so let's say, for example, okay, if I have a well, I drilled well here, okay, I drilled well here, I drilled another well here, okay. Let's say that the top, okay, in this well top, about the top of my reservoir is at three, for example, 3,000 feet, okay, and then in the well B, okay, I found out that the top, okay, is at, let's say, 3,000, okay, 3,040 feet. So any geologist who make the correlation will understand that there is a faulting area indicated by the displacement in the well tops from 3,000 to 3,040, especially if the distance, okay, we are talking about the distance, if the distance is not high between well X, okay, and well Y, then there is a high probability that there is a fault. But if there is no well that crossing this fault, okay, we need more confirmation, or the geologists need more confirmation to say that there is a fault between these two wells, and this confirmation comes from seismic. All right. Structural definition, as we said, for geology is based on well tops and correlation, while in seismic it's very high quality. High quality seismic can show us faults, fault network, fractures, and also seismic data can enable us to map or to pick the horizons. And as I said, based on the quality, stratigraphic control, we know it's very strong in case of the if we are studying basin scale, if we are talking about regional or basin scale, seismic is very excellent to identify the stratigraphic architecture from system tracts. But in geological characteristics, we can identify the stratigraphic framework from near the wells or at wells location. The main strength for both of them now, the main strength for geological characterization is the accurate measurements. Okay, like core data, we are sending core data to be measured in the lab, so it's very it's considered hard data. We also we have section, we have the well logs. All of these data are considered as their measurements are are accurate, while for in seismic, the only uh, uh, points, okay, that we can characterize or identify from seismic easily, okay, and whatever the type of seismic quality is and geometry and continuity, but I think continuity depends on the seismic quality. So for the main strength for geology is the accuracy of the measurements, while in seismic is the geometry and overall architecture of the reservoir. Okay, the main limitations, will come to them more details later. The main limitations is this sparse spatial control. So you have a control over the well location where you are where you drilled the well. Okay, so you can extract data, you can make interpretation for the faces that you are seeing from the core. Okay, you can also identify the dip and the azimuth angles of the bedding plane from the FMI, but all within the location of the well, so you cannot go further. And for seismic, we have the resolution and ambiguity, and both depends on many factors like the velocity, like the seismic, like the location, is it offshore, onshore, uh, the data processed, not is it pre-stack, post-stack. All this depends or control the resolution and ambiguity of the seismic. Typical uncertainty, the interpolation and extrapolation. The interpolation of the data, the more data we have, the better interpolation and extrapolation, and the less data we have, the more uncertain interpolation. Uh, this is for the geological data um, or geological characterization, while in seismic and velocity is the main and it's the main parameter that control the uncertainty. And I think that all the fields in the world, they have the issue of velocity. They have the issue of velocity, because if velocity has uncertainty, then you expect mislocating the wells, expect you mislocate the tops of the reservoir. Best application, we can use the data of geology in detailed reservoir modeling, 3D static modeling. So we can use softwares like Petrel, like RMS, okay, like TNIGL, Navigate, RMS, any other softwares. We can use all the geological data to build a robust 3D model, while for seismic characterization, we can build a field-wide frame structure framework, maybe include three or four or maybe more fields can be included in this framework. Okay, so before we build any geological model, all right, we need to understand where our information come from. Okay, uh, geological characterization is fundamentally built on direct measurement from the subsurface. This data gives the most detailed and accurate. We have the core data, we have the well log. Uh, as I said, this data gives the most detailed and accurate view of reservoir rocks and fluids, but only as we said at specific locations. So what we are using for what we are using for building our model, we have the core data, we have the conventional, we have the scale data, we have the petrophysical analysis that we obtain from the well logs. We run well logs and we can get curves that tell us a lot about the lithology and the petrophysical properties of the reservoir. We have the cuttings that also tell us about the lithology and also the porosity and the hydrocarbon content of the formations and the subsurface. We have the well tests, we have the pressure tests, XPT, RFT. We have also, and we don't have to forget also the outcrop analog, which is very important parameter, especially in the exploration stage when we are exploring for hydrocarbon potential, as we mentioned earlier in the life cycle of the field. So this is also very important information, and it can be used to build model. Now we knew where the geological data comes from. So now I ask myself, okay, what does this data actually tell me? Okay, as a geologist, okay, what does it tell me about a reservoir? You know, the interpretation skills allow you, okay, to move from raw measurement or raw data to meaningful understanding of rock types. Also, reservoir quality. We collect data, we interpret this data, we do all the necessary analysis, then we come up with image that tells us about the geology, about the petroleum system, about the reservoir quality, about the fluid type, fluid distribution, any. So here you see all the key elements. Actually, it's the key elements. Okay, it's not the most important elements. It's not all the elements. No, it's the key elements that the geologist help him or her to define. To define the geology of the reservoir. Uh, so what do we have here? We describe, okay, so one of the things we do is that we describe the core, okay, once we extract core from the borehole, okay, we do the description for the phases, we define or identify the positional environment, then we do a correlation. After that, we integrate faces with the multiple the faces that we got from the core description. We integrated with other data from multiple resources to create rock types. Okay, then we can use well logs or after running well logs in the borehole, we use them to compute reservoir properties and integrate with core data and do correlation to detect lateral vertical connectivity. Also, we define heterogeneity by calculating heterogeneity index, which in turn define the quality of the reservoir. So all these, so these are the key, as I said, the key elements that geologists, or let's say that reservoir or geological characterization project never run out of either of them, as all of them together are very represent geological workflow. Okay, now let's come to the hotspot. Okay, so I ask myself, okay, does geology alone, okay, can give me the complete picture about my reservoir or about the situation in the subsurface? Actually, I say no. Why? All geological interpretations that we do in this stage, okay, are affected by by the main, okay, parameter, which is the data limitations. You remember when we talked about that the data that we obtain from the wells belong to that well. So this means it tells us the information about the geology of the reservoir at that well, okay, not the whole reservoir. So let's see how these limitations impact our geological characterizations. The problem with geological data is lateral constraint, as I said, okay? Although, or in spite of, it provides excellent vertical detail, but limited lateral information. And in addition to that, or result in small scale heterogeneity barriers may be missed, or so this has an impact on the quality of the reservoir. So what do I mean by that? Okay, let me just clean this one. So if I have a well, okay, let me draw a well. So this is the ground, this is the well, okay, and this is another well. Okay, I drilled a well, okay, I obtained core data, I built my faces core description, okay, I identified the positional environment and all this stuff, okay, and the other well, okay, I did the same, I created core, so I have another, okay, faces description, okay. The geologist sometimes, when he comes to do a correlation, sometimes he finds a difference, especially if there is a high distance between both wells. Okay, so if the well A, let's say, is far from the well B, let's say for okay, well, let's say around 200 meters. Okay, you can he find that faces A, okay, is no longer visible here, and it's faces B. Okay, so any geologist assume that this faces either change to B or pinched out. It means that disappeared. But here the problem is where this phase is pinched out, because sometimes this phase is a reservoir and this phase is not a reservoir. You see the issue where? So where the geologist can decide, or where we can decide to drill our well, because we don't know. This is the bit that has the oil, okay, and it's disappearing in the well B, which is around 200 meter away from A. Okay, so where I can drill another well to produce from the same layer. Okay, this is what means by lateral constraint. There is no we can the geological data, this is our geological data, cannot help us to decide where I can put my well, okay, to produce or to target this bit, because we don't know where does it end here, or maybe here, or maybe here, okay, or maybe changed in ethology. So all this information we cannot identify. This drives the uncertainty, but the support, okay, or the first aid, okay, let's say called the first aid, come from seismic, which improve our understanding, okay, of lateral continuity by using seismic attributes. Okay, for example, uh, some seismic attributes can tell you, especially if those with high resolution, can help me to track or trace this bit, okay, to trace. But let's say, let's assume that it's a channel, okay, let's assume that this bit is a channel, okay, and I want to follow this channel or trace it. Where does it stop? Here, seismic attributes or seismic data can be of valuable support. So this is for the limited. I jump to number two, limited lateral coverage. Then we also come to the sparse well control. Let me go back to the presentation. Sorry. Okay, for partial control, geological data are concentrated at one location. Okay, we talked about this one. Let's move to interpolation uncertainty, interpolation and extrapolation. So what do we mean by interpolation and extrapolation? Okay, it's statistical definitions, which is very important. So what do we mean by interpolation and extrapolation? Interpolation is that when you distribute the data between the main point. Okay, so let's say that I have the main cross plot between porosity and permeability, okay, and I have all the points, my all points, okay, and this is my curve. Okay, let me get this color. The regression line. Okay, so when I talk about interpolation, I need to estimate the values of permeability between the points, between the black points. Okay, this is what it means by interpolation. So I need to know the value here of permeability. I need to know the value here. I need to know the value here. So this is how you interpolate the data, like the example that I talked about here. We want to predict the permeability at this point through interpolation between the samples of the data that we have in the plot. Going back to our slide. So, what are the limitations? Okay, when data are interpolated, okay, away from the wells, especially when you are building a model. Okay, the geological model may misrepresent the phase distribution or connectivity, because distribution is based on variogram. The input of this variogram is taken from the well data, which as we said, reflect the geology of the reservoir at that area. Let me give another example. Sorry, let's say you remember the upscaling. When we talked about the upscaling of the cells in the 3D model. Okay, let's say that we have Okay, let's say that we have here porosity log. Okay, we have a porosity log here. Okay, okay, it's increasing this way. Okay, and we did an upscale. Okay, let's say that we did upscale for 5 feet. Okay, so we have a cells. Okay, which have a 5 feet. Okay, 5 feet length or size. So this is 5 feet. And we did the same with the other one. Maybe they are not the same length, but it's just for clarification. Okay. So if the upscaling is big, okay, if the upscaling is big, you may miss some important features like the high shell the high porosity intervals like these ones. Okay, so the upscale will not capture these high scale these high porosity intervals because since it's high assume that there is a proportional relationship between porosity and permeability, so this means that there is a effective porosity, then there is a high permeability, and if you missed the high permeability in the model, the model will underestimate this will underestimate will underestimate the sweep efficiency in reservoir simulation when you do when the reservoir engineers when you include low permeability or non-realistic or not representative permeability inside your model cells, then there will be issue with the sweep efficiency in the simulation, and that of course will because a problem because this high this high probability or high effective porosity will not capture um, uh, in your model. Also, when you do mapping, when you want to do mapping, okay, so let's say that I have a field like this, okay, so I have a well here, okay, I have another well here, I have another well here, I also another well here. Okay, let's say assume that we want to make a porosity map. Okay, we have a data for only these wells, okay, which have a good distance between each others. We will have a different, okay, if we apply the SGS, okay, the sequential Gaussian simulation method to simulate or to create the map, or we use a we can do conventional interpolation or we can do Kriging interpolation. But since there is a high distance between the wells, there will be uncertainty in the values of the contours porosity both between all the wells. Why? Because we don't have enough data between the wells. So the interpolation will have high uncertainty associated with the quantity of the data we have. You know, the mapping or the mapping or the model uncertainty always depend on the data quantity and quality. So the more data you have, the best quality you have, the less uncertainty you have in your study results. Now we come to the another limitations for geological characterization. What is it? What is this? What we call it sampling bias. You know, wells are often drilled in structure in the best location on the structure. Okay. Also, these wells are drilled to penetrate the high quality zones, which have the higher flow intervals, which has the highest thickness. Okay. Uh, so as a result, geological data may overpresent good reservoir properties, okay, which lead to overly optimistic prediction, forecast, and development plans. So, sampling bias. Let's go back to the previous example that we talked about, the locations of the well. Okay, so we have a well here. Okay, we have another well here. Okay, we have the well. Okay, and we have will be. So sometimes, okay, this one. Let's click it again. It's not this, not example. Okay. Usually in the exploration phases, okay, in exploration phases, always the wells are oil companies target the structures height, like for example the faults. Okay, so we have, okay, for example, we have faults here. Okay, and according to the geological studies from different wells, from the maps. Okay, let's say from the maps, and they find out that there is the ultimate the crest or the top of the fault is in this location. You come and drill a well here. Okay, sometimes you may locate, okay, based on this data, okay, you may locate your well in the wrong place of the structure. So who can help you to locate the well? Actually, it's the most it's actually very supportive data, which is the seismic data that can define exactly which location that you can locate your well. In the past, the geology was depending on the maps, okay, on the satellite maps, on the contour maps, structure maps, to locate the wells in the top of the structures. But now the seismic or 3D seismic can help for in locating the wells in more precise areas. Okay, so this is another limitation added to the geological data by over-presenting. Okay. Also, even by the way, even for a good even the reservoir properties sometimes uh, lab data. Okay, this happened before, and I witnessed. I lived this issue. Okay, we extracted the core data. Okay, let's say that you have. Okay, well, what happened at that time? Remember, we extracted core data from the well, so we have our reservoir here, and we extracted core data. We extracted core data, and we ran permeability, and the permeability was very high, reached around 1 Darcy. So 1 Darcy, it means that it's more than, it's 10,000 milli Darcy. Okay, so after that, but at the same time, the will logs, okay, when we ran the will logs told us that the permeability is not that is not that big number. It's much less. So where was the problem? Was the problem is the micro is the development of high flow intervals. So the well logs could not capture those high flow intervals, but the samples that was taken from the samples of core was taken at those intervals could read or could measure very high permeability compared to the well logs, which did not confirm this number. So this is another limitations, and geologists should be careful when dealing with this data. Always make sure that there is a close, okay, match, okay, there is a match or consistency between core data and well logs data, especially if there is a, uh, sorry, always confirm that there is a match, okay, between core data and well logs before resuming working on your study or project. Okay, then we come to the time and cost constraint. Okay, okay, how it impacts for development or study. So, acquiring or taking core and detailed loop data, it's expensive, all right, and time consuming. Like core data, cooling is very expensive. It used to be expensive in the past. Now it's much more expensive nowadays. So let's assume, okay, let's assume that oil company. Okay, let's say that you have a field. Okay, you are working on a field, okay, and the company tend to drill six development wells, okay. They will drill six development wells. So we have development well here, development well here, development well here, and this is your oil water contact. Assume this is the oil water fluid contact. But to reduce or to cut costs, they want to take core only from this well, okay, and from this well only. Okay, they don't want to spend a lot of money on taking core from the other wells. So what will happen in this case? In this case, you will have uncertainty about the reservoir properties, okay, in this area, especially when you do the extrapolation in your model to distribute the porosity and permeability from the cored wells toward the non-cored wells. You will have un uncertainty on your data. Okay, and this will be handled by also um, seismic, why seismic in this for cost and time consuming. Seismic, it's very effective tool here. Why? Because if the company may compensate, okay, compensate or handle the uncertainty in this area by reprocessing, okay, or redoing the seismic. You know, seismic every day is in development, and it's getting more developed day by day. Okay, so companies tend to reprocess or reinterpret, okay, and use the new processed data or reprocessed seismic data to reduce the uncertainty of this area where we don't have geological data like core data or wireline data, or sometimes even what some oil companies use seismic to extrapolate data for wells which have no data at all, like wireline or core, nothing at all. Okay. So this is these are the main five constraints for or limitations of geological uh, geological characterization. Okay. Now we come to seismic. We jumped out of seismic. No, we jumped out of geology. Now we move to seismic. So far we have focused on what geology tell us, and we talked about the constraints and so on. Now the attention should be paid to seismic data because also what's applied to geology applied for seismic data as well. Okay, uh, seismic interpretation provide large-scale framework or structural framework of, okay, of the surface and help companies to understand the most one of the important parameters, which is the geometry of the structure, the extent, the continuity, and all this. So here we have the main types of seismic data, which is well known by and processed or used by all the oil companies. We have the 2D, 3D seismic surveys, okay, which enable us to give us image or carbon, we call it carbon image of the subsurface. We have the seismic attributes resulting from the inversion processing, which help us to distribute our geological data and model them. Okay, from fluids to phases to property. We have the data inversion. We have the seismic mapping. We can also, some attributes can help us to estimate, can help estimating porosity like acoustic impedance and saturation. Uh, the integration with geology, which is combining seismic and geological data, like when we do a synthetic seismogram or mapping. Okay, let's take 5 minutes break and then we come back, okay? Okay, just 5 minutes break. Okay, we resume. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. I appreciate if somebody join. I cannot keep jumping from the presentation to, to the meeting window. So please, if anybody wants to join us, join. Do approve him or her, please. Okay. So I assume let's now go quickly what seismic tell us. Okay, we previously talked about what geology. Okay, tell us now what seismic tell us. First is a structural framework. Okay, seismic can define the structure, okay, of the reservoir or even multiple reservoirs, such as including faults, trap geometries. This information is essential for identifying hydrocarbon traps and understanding if, if there is a compartmentalization in the field. For those who maybe not so much familiar with the compartmentalization, uh, compartmentalization. Uh, Compartmentalization, it's a process uh, of dividing, okay, the field into subfields, okay, or let's say to parts. Okay, for example, you have a prospect, okay, you have a large prospects like this, okay, and you have three fields, okay, and you have, let's say that you have two or three structures. So you have a structure A here, okay, you have a structure B here, you have a structure C here, okay. So compartmentalization is classifying or sorry, this is not the fault. Let's assume that they are faults, okay, false. Okay, and let's assume that some of these faults are faulted. Okay, like this way. Okay, so we have a compartment here, we have compartment here, and we have compartment here. Another compartmentalization can be done even in the reservoir, in the isolated reservoir itself. For example, we have this structure, okay, and we have a reservoir. Sometimes, if this fault is sealed, okay, let's say that it's a major fault, okay, and if it's sealed, then the company tend to consider, okay, this compartment as compartment one, okay, and this is compartment two. Okay, why they divided them? Because as long as this fault or the major fault is a sealing fault, this means that the pressure regime in this compartment is different uh, from the pressure regime in this compartment. And this means also, okay, this means also that the fluid behavior, okay, in this part when we produce, it will not be the same this uh, as this one, and sometimes even the development plan for this compartment could be different from this compartment, depends on the sealing and also the displacement of this fault. So this is I wanted to explain the meaning of compartmentalization. Okay, all right. What do even tell us? As we said, seismic provide us information about the faults and fracture system, uh, 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 even fracture trends like seismic attributes. Some seismic attributes like untrapped and very helpful and supportive. And this is very important. You know why it's very important? Because it influences the fluid flow, and as we said, the pressure regime or pressure communication. So the such data, okay, regarding the fault and fracture can help identify the flow barriers and also support compartmentalization analysis, and also helps reservoir engineers to improve pressure management strategies. As we said earlier, that coal companies tend to, if there is a ceiling fault, yeah, and the ceiling fault is dividing our field into our structure into two compartments, then each compartment will have its pressure management plan. So what else also what the seismic tell us is about the stratigraphy. Okay, the stratigraphic architecture, the system tracks. The system track. So it can reveal, seismic can reveal also the positional patterns. Okay, we can define the channels, we can define the reef. Okay, we can also define the loops, unconformities through the sequence boundaries. You know the famous key surfaces of seismic stratigraphy, the downlapping and onlapping trends. All these are very important features that help us to define or uh, uh, draw a picture or make a picture about the stratigraphic architecture of the basin, not only the reservoir, even the basin. Okay, so such information can support also can help us to build the positional environment development, how the delta progressed, how the sea level progressed toward the land, how the carbonate platform developed, how the faces vertically stacked, laterally distributed, and so it's very valuable information. Also, and the most important, also the lateral continuity and connectivity, either vertical or lateral. Seismic can help reservoir characterization study to reduce uncertainty in the interwell area. So we have when we any oil field, okay, we have wells, okay, we have data, the geological data is concentrate around, as we said, it's representative to the reservoir and the well area, but the inter area, we don't know anything. We have uncertainty here, and this uncertainty can be mitigated, okay, or reduced by what? By seismic data. Why? Because it's continuous, laterally continuity or lateral continuous data. Okay, and finally, it's a reservoir extent, even geometry. Okay, we cannot. It's difficult, or let's say it's time consuming and expensive if you want to depend on only geological data. So assume that you have a large structure. Okay, you have a lot of multiple vertically stacking channels. Okay, you cannot determine it from well or two or three wells. You need hundreds of wells to reach the shape or the geometry or the extent of this the shape of the structure or the extent of these channels. Okay, so seismic is very supportive. In my career, I saw very beautiful seismic showing you the direction, showing you the direction of the channels. So from seismic, I'm sure that some of you encountered seismic attributes, which shows you on the lateral scale shows you the channel goes like this. Okay, it goes like this. So you have a well here. Okay, you have a well here. You have another well here. Okay, with a seismic can help you to define the boundary of your channel, and you can focus your development along the sand body uh, of that channel. Imagine we depend only on the geological data. So we remove the channel pattern that we have obtained from seismic. How we can now develop our fields, where we can drill our wells. It's very difficult, you see. You see how seismic is very important in this case. We don't know the channel where it goes. Okay, we know from the, let's assume this is appraisal well. Okay, the appraisal well told us or guided us, okay, from the sedimentary structures obtained from the core tells us that the channel direction toward this, okay, but where is the sinuosity? Where is the direction? Where is the extension and the geometry? Is it narrow? Is it wide? So this is here. Here comes the seismic importance to help us to distribute the data away from the wells away from the wells and reduce the uncertainty in the distance between them. And like this, oil companies save money and save time as well. Okay, okay. Like data, geological data, there are limitations for seismic characterizations. When we do a seismic characterization, there's limitations. The one is the resolution. We talked about it uh, earlier. Resolution of seismic is not very high like core data or well logs, or as we said that it's from 10 to 30 and sometimes it's more. So any data, okay, any data less than, okay, less than the range of the resolution of seismic will not be able to to capture it. Okay, so let's assume that seismic data is from 10 to 50. Okay, okay, let's say that I have a reservoir. Okay, let's say that I have okay, this is my surface. Okay, so this is my reservoir. I have a large thick reservoir and I have also small zones like this. Okay, small. I have this is a reservoir one, which is unit one. Okay, unit one. That's called U1, and this is U2. Let's assume that the thickness of this one is 50 meter. Okay, and this one, let's say that is 15 meter. Okay, and let's say that the resolution of the seismic is from 20 to 50. Okay, so anything below 20, okay, it will not be captured by seismic. So this means that seismic will capture this zone, okay, because it's within the range scale or within the resolution, while the small bit will not be captured, and it will be very big problem if the reservoir or the main unit producing from this reservoir or this is the bed which has the highest or the most significant hydrocarbon uh, quantity. So this means that if the seismic missed this interval, it will not be captured in the model, and the model will have high uncertainty, and this bit or layer will not be included or underestimated in the simulation process. So you see how important the resolution is. Okay. Noise and artifact, it's associated with the quality of seismic. Okay. Poor acquisition. Actually, these are the anomalies, okay, that can be handled during the processing. So when we do seismic processing, there is a filtering process that remove the noise, the artifacts, fixing signals, and all this. But sometimes the seismic acquisition itself or the conditions under which the seismic was done is poor. Okay, so you have a lot of noise, you have processing artifacts. Okay, so the signals of seismic. I'm sure that all of you saw some poor quality seismic. Okay, so from poor quality seismic, there's a problem. You cannot define the you cannot understand. You cannot see the structure clearly, and based on that, you cannot define define. You cannot recognize the extension of the uh, reservoir, and also you cannot, based on that, you also cannot know where to locate your well. Okay, so there is negative impact. This is very important. Usually, I noticed in my career that always the onshore seismic has less quality compared to the offshore, and this used to be associated with uh, uh, the thickness or the thickness of the soil or the ground, okay, or the ground level, and also the activity around the field site, which has significant impact on the signals during acquisition. While in offshore, the signals is not interrupted because it is not interrupted under the the seabed, so it travels smoothly and reflects also smoothly and can after processing it gives nice continuity of reflectors and hence a good quality seismic that they can help geophysicists to identify faults, geometry, and stratigraphic features. So this is about the noise and data quality. Also, there is what you call non-uniqueness. Okay, uh, the different geological scenarios can produce similar uh, seismic response. Like, for example, if we have a sandstone reservoir composed of different lithology, or sometimes, let's say that you have a sandstone which is heterogeneous. So, okay, so you have an arenite, you have arcosic sandstone, you have a lithic fragment sandstone, okay, and all this okay, is not the same, will not have the same quality, but in seismic sometimes the quality cannot differentiate those uh, between those lithologies. Okay, so for example, let me uh, draw this figure. Okay, let's say that. I have a well here, I have a well here, I have a well here. Let's say that my reservoir here, okay, let's say this is my reservoir bed. Sorry, let's say this is my reservoir bed. Okay, I have here, okay, a sandstone, okay, clean sandstone, okay. I have a clean sandstone here, and here I have a lithic fragment sandstone, okay, lithic fragment sandstone, and here I have arcosic, or let's say shaly sandstone, okay. Seismic, okay, is supposed to be reflected on the density, okay, so the density of both of the three composition density will be different, okay, from clean sandstone to arcosic, or lithic fragment sandstone to shaly sandstone, but sometimes if the quality of seismic is poor, seismic will not show us a difference in lithology. So the reflector will look as continuously like this. Okay, it will look continuous in this way. So like this, we assume that density is almost the same, which is not the same. We have different ethologies. So if you drilled wells thinking that you have a clean sandstone here, you will encounter bad quality reservoir, and may you and if you have a the bad quality reservoir could be indicated by diagenesis, which has blocked your porosity, so you cannot produce from this area of your reservoir. You see how in this time the geology is supportive for seismic, not vice versa. You see how the geology now is supporting the seismic when there's a limitation associated with with a non-uniqueness. Okay, actually it's very important probably because if non-uniqueness, the non-uniqueness of seismic data will also lead to creating multiple models. Okay, so each time we drill the well and we find that seismic data is not representing the geology in this area. Okay, we need to update the model every time we get a new data, and that of course will take time and take money as well. Then we come to the troublemaker. I call it the troublemaker, which is the velocity uncertainty. Always there's uncertainty with velocity, which introduce error in the property and depth estimation, mainly depth estimation. Actually, okay, usually seismic interpretation is done and always in time domain. Okay, and after that, the geophysicists do a depth conversion using the velocity model or velocity maps, and this depends or relies. So depth conversion relies on velocity model, okay, which is always, not often. Okay, they say often, but it's not often. So always on uncertain. So what the exaggerated or the incorrect velocities, what does it result? Result in errors in the depth, okay, in determining the depth. And this happened, and I witnessed these mistakes. So we are drilling. Imagine that you are drilling. Imagine that you've been told, or the geophysicist wrote in the prognosis report of the well that you will encounter the top of the reservoir X depth 4,000, and you during drilling, the well site geologist reaches 4,000, but it doesn't. It tells you that top of the reservoir is still far. So how you can feel about that? So this is you see the problem with the velocity model. So you keep drilling, you keep drilling, and sometimes you find uncertainty reaching sometimes 10, 20, and most of the time, the best quality of seismic, the uncertainty of velocity of, from 5 to 10 feet, which is considered as nothing. But for pure quality reservoir, sometimes it reaches much more than this number. And believe me, I encountered very large numbers which almost cause the problem for the guys who are working in the on that uh, on that part of the study. So velocity, okay, velocity is velocity uncertainty is very limitation, it's very critical limitation. It should be paid attention. Then we come finally to the rock physics assumptions. Okay, so seismic properties. The interpretation of seismic properties depends on the assumptions, okay, about the relationship between elastic properties, okay, the compressibility, and all these elastic parameters, and they're associated with the rock and fluid um, parameters. So if there's a poor or there's a poor calibration between both, that will result in unreliable uh, uh, properties. So now we come to the scale and resolution challenge. As we said earlier, when we have shown the table, we have a core versus seismic, both different resolutions, okay? And both core and log represent very tiny or small volume of rock, while seismic average property, okay, or cover the property over large areas. So when you compare both the properties calculated from the well log to the seismic, you will not find a good match or consistency between both. So that makes the direct comparison difficult and hide, and most importantly, hide small and important features in the rock. You remember when you do, for example, when you talk about synthetic seismogram, okay, if this synthetic seismogram, we use it, okay, to calibrate the seismic with the seismic at well scale with synthetic seismogram, right? So when you have So what do you know? Let's say that you have a gamma ray. Okay, you have in your well. Okay, you have a gamma ray. You have high gamma ray here, Okay, so I assume this is a shell interval, okay, which represent a seal. Okay, sometimes when you come to the seismic section, okay, seismic section, let me draw a seismic section roughly, okay, like this. Okay, let's say that you have a trough, okay, you have the trough here, okay, and you have a peak below. Okay, so this is the peak, okay, and this is the trough. You see the trough, okay, trough is not capturing exactly the small or the thin layer of the shell. Okay, so when you calculate the property, okay, let's say let's say porosity, okay, then you are not capturing the actual uh, or the thickness, okay, the thickness of this small shale layer. You will not be capturing it, capturing it in seismic, and this is one of the problem of of the scale resolution between core and seismic. Okay, then we come to another one, which is the vertical and lateral resolution. So, formulas they provide high vertical details. Okay, why does it provide high vertical details? Especially, okay, for example, Windows, the sampling or the resolution is what, zero point 0.1 feet, so it's half a feet. Okay, core is 1 foot. Okay, so it's a very high resolution. Okay, so vertically, geological data is very reliable, but laterally, it's very limited because the coverage is only at the well limitations. While seismic can provide high or wide lateral coverage, but lower vertical resolution. You see, both are vice versa. One has a good vertical resolution and poor lateral resolution. The other one has a good lateral resolution and poor vertical resolution. You see, you see what you need to deal with when you are working on field development or exploration projects. You see how serious this problem. You also come to the upscaling issue. Okay, so when fine scale data, or geological data, okay, have averaged into larger model cells, okay, like the one that I have drawn earlier regarding upscaling. If you remember the upscaling I talked about earlier. So let me go back again and draw the porosity. Okay, I have a porosity here, I have a poor porosity here, and I have a high porosity here also, and I have low porosity. When I do the upscaling, okay, let's say that I did upscale of 5 feet size. Okay, so my upscale could capture this high porosity. I go again and do another cell. Okay, I do another cell again. Okay, another cell again. You see, this high interval, our tiny layer of high porosity will not be captured, okay, because it will be averaged with the poor porosity and will be underestimated. Okay, so this means that I feel sometimes this is a high flow unit. Sometimes it's a high flow unit. I could not capture it in the model, so this means that there is uncertainty in the porosity model I have created. Why? Because I didn't capture this high flow interval. And also the downscaling issue, which is the seismic scale, when seismic scale transformation uh, translated or change the seismic scale to will scale, like when we do modeling, you convert all the cube into a grid, okay, and you convert the grid to will scale. So here you keep averaging. You see, you keep averaging, and this averaging will make you lose. It's like simplifying. You are simplifying the seismic, so you lose the some geological variation, which result, and this happens when you oversimplify your seismic. So you keep changing it from you have a seismic, you've changed it to 3D grid, and after that you change the 3D grid into well scale, and each every time you keep averaging. So normally you will lose a lot of geological features that was captured, like fractures and other properties. Okay, so when as a geologist or geophysicist, or both, or together both, we need to understand the uncertainty. Okay, we need to understand before we assume working on getting deeper into the work. We don't have to keep working, and there is uncertainty, and let that and let that go, to keep working and never pay attention. No, we need to understand uncertainty and quantify, okay, for better and more successful integration. So you have the uncertainty regarding data quality, okay, such as uncertainty related to the accuracy or the completeness and reliability of the geological and seismic data. There's a video I talked about the quality, the most important quality control parameters that we need to take or to apply when we deal with our data. So both geologists and geophysicists should work on this. They need to check consistency. They need to check the timeline. They need to check the updates. They need to check the completeness, uh, the validity. All this data is all these parameters need to check before you work on your data. There's also the noisy seismic and poor log quality, missing core intervals, what else? Inconsistent data set. Because all these have a great impact on reservoir studies if you don't pay attention to. So you will increase the risk of incorrect interpretations, and this will lead to mislocation of the development wells, or the wells that you want to, or the well, or mislocating the wells that you want to produce or develop your field. It also, and based on that, you will affect the volumetric and simulation results, and this is the red line actually. But then we come to the interpretation uncertainty. So once you don't have, so you see the consequence, once you didn't pay attention to the data quality uncertainty, so either the seismic or geological, you will yeah, you will end up, there is you'll be subjected to the rule that say garbage in, garbage out. So if you use the data which is not quality controlled, you will end up with rubbish interpretation, and which has a lot of errors and have um, um, impact on your model, and also will result in consistent development scenarios, and reduce also the confidence in predictions. This is very important uh, thing that both the geology and the geologists and geophysicists should pay attention to. We have also the modeling assumption of uncertainty. Reservoir models require assumptions. Sometimes you need to assume, and these assumptions come from your concept. Both the geophysicists and geologists who are working for a long time on a certain field, they have concept about the structure, they have concept about property, they have a concept about the uh, the potential of the reservoir, the quality of the reservoir, about the phase distribution, the physical relationship, rock physics, and all this. Okay, so this concept, how both can support their concept through data. So more data, the more information, they can build more robust concept, which help them, okay, which support them to lay acceptable assumptions, okay, that can support them. But in case these assumptions was built on poor data quality or insufficient data, the assumptions may not be fully, may not be, if it's will not fully supported by data, then they will have a negative impact on the reservoir studies, such as uh, different or biased property distribution, under or overestimation of reserve, high uncertainty in reserve calculations, also poor protection for customers. And then we come to the scale related uncertainty. So uncertainty caused by converting data between core log seismic and simulation scales. You, you know, sometimes to handle your model, you need to make some conversions. Okay, so that you use core data for modeling instead of log. Sometimes you distribute you create porosity model based on acoustic impedance, which is coming from poor quality seismic, and all this again will have a negative impact on the reservoir studies. Also, here we go into reservoir dynamic data uncertainty. Of course, if the last four phases was not handled, all of them will have negative impact on the dynamic data uncertainty, um, which is related to prediction data, pressure data, time lapse. Okay, okay, will have impact on the reservoir studies also, and finally, business and economic uncertainty will get higher based on data quality again. So make sure before you go with your projects. So if you are a geologist or geophysicist, make sure from your data quality and quantity and quantify your data. Make sure uh, that they are sufficient to achieve your project results or the project targets. Okay, now the big question. Okay, when do I rely on geology data? When do I rely on seismic? And when do I rely on both? Okay, so let's say in case of exploration, let's take it to phase by phase, okay, of the field cycle. In the exploration phase, the role of seismic, few or no wells, few or no wells are available. You know, exploration usually you have only one well, or sometimes you don't have well at all. So you are depending on on seismic, on outcrops, on maps. These are the main data that you have. So seismic is the main tool, okay, for identifying structural and stratigraphic tracks, estimating also reservoir size and assessing the productivity. Okay, the productivity based logs, based on analogs data, based on maps, and all of this. Well, the role of geology in this part comes from studying, as you said, obtaining data from the outcrop, doing basic analysis which support seismic interpretation and help assess the area or the play concepts. Yes. So both can work in two directions in the exploration phase, and this can have impact on prospect evaluating and ranking, also drilling location selection, and also can assess initial risk. You see, both of them are working in two parallel in two lines, but they are parallel to each other's two more to make the exploration project successful. But we don't deny the truth that seismic is more important in this phase, which is the exploration phase. Then we come to the next one, which is the appraisal. Okay, we call it the balance integration. So it means that both of them 50% importance, 50% for geology, 50% for geophysics. So the role of seismic, or what's the role of seismic in case of in the face of appraisal? So it update or what do you call refine the structure, okay, or map doing mapping for reservoir boundaries. We know where the top of the reservoir start, where does it end. Okay, the geometry. Okay, the rule of geology here, three or four appraisal wells can provide core log data. You know, always appraisal wells get the more the acquisition data acquisition plan always concentrated in the appraisal wells, so you get a lot of you will get core data, you will get wireline data, you will get MWD, you will get pressure data, a lot of data. So this appraisal wells data, when calibrating with seismic, it can uh, uh, provide help or support reserve estimation, can also help development concept selection. Okay, how the development plan will be done. Okay, and also design the well spacing. This is very important. This is very important. Well spacing, how the space between the wells it will be. Okay, so you see both of them have more attention here. For development, here we call it the integrated focus. So this means that both of them should work together, work together. So we the role of seismic, the seismic constraint the structural stratigraphic framework and support property modeling. Okay, we take seismic geology. Okay, let's call the development stage integrated focus. This means that here in this stage we are focusing on the geo model, and we know that the geo model is the integration of the full workflow between geology and geophysics, and both of them. And this stage, the geomodeler take the data from the seismic, take data from the geology, take the seismic tops, okay, the tops of the formations and features and physical property from the geologist, and put them inside the model and build robust integrated 3D geo model. Then comes the production, then comes the production phase. Production phase, both geology and seismic have a contribution, but it's dynamic focus. So this means that the reservoir engineer or the reservoir engineering has let's say the biggest chunk of this phase, but it doesn't mean that it's okay. It's actually integration phase as well, but the dynamic will be integrated with seismic and geology in this part. So the what seismic so, seismic do it from seismic, especially 4D seismic. Okay, 4D seismic. It's a repeated seismic through time, and it can help the geophysicist or reservoir engineer monitor fluid movement and pressure changes. So it's very important data. And the role of geology, also the geology has a contribution in this integration, okay, with the dynamic, which is update the geological model and refine the or upscale the grid, the 3D grid to maximize understanding of the reservoir. Of course, the integration of the with the dynamic. Okay, now we are not talking about the integration between geophysics and between seismic and geology. We're here in this phase of the production of the field cycle. Dynamic is involved in the integration, and based on the data provided by the seismic and the geology, they can decide uh, they can decide drilling infill wells. They can make a plan for enhanced recovery in case project like IOR and EUR. They can also the reservoir engineers can make strategies for reservoir management. Okay, so just quick integration workflow overview. So far, we have discussed why the integration is important, the last slide, and when to rely on geology and seismic. So now the question is, how do we actually integrate these data sets in practice? Okay, how do we integrate it? So this is the workflow how you integrate. Okay, so first you collect and data conditioning. So you are collect all the available geological, geophysical, petrophysical, and production data all gathered and quality check. All right. So seismic volumes, well logs, core data, check shots, PSP, production history, anything. And what's the purpose? To ensure that only the reliable, okay, see, focus on that, only the reliable, consistent, and um, reliable data can enter the modeling workflow. All right. Then the next step is to do with seismic time depth calibration, and this is of course the job of the geophysicist, where seismic data are calibrated to well data using synthetic seismograms, shots, and VSP, and the links. This links seismic time to true reservoir depth and the purpose to align seismic reflections with geological markers and reservoir units. After that, you move to the structural and stratigraphic framework building, and here where it comes the fun or the interesting part, where faults, horizon, and stratigraphic surfaces are interpreted from seismic and constrained by well data, like FMI, drilling data, the forms. This form the skeleton of the reservoir model and the purpose to define reservoir compartments, boundaries, and connectivity. After that, we have the property modeling where we build static reservoir model. We use the well log, score data, and seismic data to distribute our properties, the volume of either volume of shale, porosity, effective porosity, permeability, water saturation, hydrocarbon saturation, and then we upscale our model and convert it to a dynamic model where we run the simulation and do history match. And here where comes the dynamic integration into this stage. And after that, we move to the we move to uh, yes, the stage of the validation, updating, it's the stage where reservoir engineer run the simulation and history match to see if there is a good match, then if there's a good match, then all then the model is robust and it can go ahead to be used for forecasting. If there is a problem, there's a mismatch uh, between actual production and the simulation, then the model will be considered non-validated and it needs updating. Another or the last thing important to highlight is not only integration of the workflows between seismic and geology or even dynamic, also the integration, also the integration with the team between not team. Sorry, the integration technique. First one is a seismic guided phases. So this means that you are using seismic attribute, okay, to distribute your phases, like we mentioned earlier, the fluvial and the fluvial channels, the carbon platform, the reefs, okay. So you are linking seismic patterns to the positional environment, okay. So this is what we do, and this is very important because what you do actually are distributing the phases between the wells using seismic attributes, and this will reduce unrealistic phases interpolation, which have impact, okay, on the positional environment and phases continuity, which will be used later to distribute or to guide the distribution of porosity and permeability. Also, another technique is the seismic-based trend modeling. Here, you are creating maps based on seismic, like the tops of like the structure maps that we are using, build the top and the bottom of the reservoir, in addition to the maps of the attributes we use to statistically model the property like porosity, like yeah, uh, 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 like porosity, like permeability and phases. This technique is such as using impedance, acoustic impedance or amplitude and soft data to distribute porosity or to highlight faults. Okay. Also, guiding for using this technique to guide porosity and net growth models. Also, control lateral property variation. Okay, then we come to the statistical integration. This method combines hard data, which is coming from the wells, and soft data, which is from seismic, into a unified property model where we can apply several algorithms like co-kriging, SGS sequential Gaussian simulations, uh, we can also distribute porosity based on acoustic impedance map, okay, or acoustic impedance log, right, or a plot between acoustic impedance and porosity data at well scale. Another technique, which is rock physics calibration, where well logs and core data are used, okay, to establish relationship between elastic properties and reservoir properties, which enable building rock physics templates and calibrating inversion results. Based on that, identifying lithology and fluid effects. And finally, it comes to another one, which is multidisciplinary model review session. Here, both geologists and geophysicists have together a workstation review or uh, a meeting also with reservoir engineer and petrophysicist. Jointly, all of them review the interpretations and models, and they can show that they can display cross-discipline validations, resolve conflicting interpretations, okay, could be associated with difference in scale, uh, or associated with the quality. This is very important step, you see. From this step is like filtering your data. Which one you let go to the model, and which one, or the simulation, and which one you exclude or keep it to improve. Okay, so the impact of integration on field, impact of integration on field development. Uh, it's The integrated models provide more accurate, okay, understanding of reservoir structure, quality, and continuity. This will have positive impact um, um, by improving drilling success rates and lower the operation, lower operation costs, costs, and also improve well placement and field layout description by combining geological phases models with seismic, structural, and stratigraphic interpretations. Uh, Also, you have another one, which is you will get more reliable reserve estimation from the integration. More realistic reserve estimation from integrated reservoir characterization improve the understanding of reservoir volume display, property distribution, and this also have impact and provide more accurate volumetric calculations like STOIB and reserve also optimize development planning and phase description as integrated models. Integrated the model when we integrate the models, then this support the evaluation of multiple development scenarios and facility design. Here we are talking about the front end, okay, the front end or the facilities of production after drilling development or production with final enhance production performance and recovery. Then we come to the teamwork and communication. The integration has a lot of benefit to the teamwork or the guys or the personnel or technicians or engineers who are working on the integration or either geologists, geophysicists, or geologists and reservoir engineer or the three of them or anybody. So you have what's the benefit or what's the positive impact of the integrated projects is clear definitions of roles and responsibilities so the geologist know what he has to do at that certain stage or the phase of the project. Okay, so each discipline has specific technical responsibilities. Okay, in their contribution of the reservoir study. Okay, so clear role, when we define clearly the role for each one, it avoid duplication or confusion or duplication of work and gaps in the interpretation. Also, uh, common technical language. So we develop common technical language. So different disciplines often use different terminology and conceptual models. Drilling have their concepts. Seismic geophysicist has his concept. Geology has a concept. Petrophysicist has a concept. So establishing like this, okay, from the integration, we establish shared definitions which improve mutual understanding, and it has impact on reducing misinterpretation of results and increase the quality of it. Also, regular multidisciplinary review sessions. This means that frequent technical meetings will allow team. Okay, whenever there's a continuous meeting between the team, geology team, geophysics team, petrophysicist, drilling, reservoir engineer, development. The meetings, these meetings allow teams to review interpretations, results, models, and assumptions together. Yeah, together, you have also the transparent sharing of data and assumptions, which open access, which we can say that when we have open access to dataset, workflows, and interpretation, sharing all this data. Um, this will ensure that all team members understand how conclusions are reached. This will also help to build trust among team members and managing interpretation differences. So different experts may interpret the same data differently. So geologists, petrophysicists, geophysicists may may reach based on the data quality, based on the skill differences, everyone may uh, uh, may interpret the same data, so either will looks or whatever may interpret them differently. So constructive discussion and workstation reviews and scenario testing together help manage these help mitigate or manage these differences which uh, have impact by encouraging critical thinking. Okay, I think critical thinking is very important soft skill in this field. Then finally, we come to the integration of technical and operational perspectives where geoscientists and engineers must align subsurface interpretations with drilling, production, and facility constraints. So this is all about the integration of the multiple disciplines. So thank you for listening and interest